Hi, everyone. Pastor Galen, lead pastor at Cheyenne Hills Church. Thank you so much for joining us on this podcast. We hope that these podcasts will be a real encouragement to you on your spiritual journey. You can also connect with Cheyenne Hills at CheyenneHills.org. Hope you enjoy the program.
We are across the street and around the world, Cheyenne Hills.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to a kind of different looking episode of the Cheyenne Hills podcast. I am obviously not Pastor Galen, and
I am not Nathan.
Right? I wasn't sure when we first came in, but yeah, so this is Pastor Karsten Sween. How's it going?
Thank you. Yeah, it's going well. Not used to that title yet, but Thank you.
So we were talking about the title because that is something that you just at the end of last month got officially ordained, and I wasn't sure if that was something that you wanted to be referred to, but I wanted to make sure people knew, like here when we're introducing you, why am I listening to these two guys on a podcast? It's this guy's a producer, and he was around because Pastor Galen's out of town, and this guy is actually a pastor. So we got something we know we're going to learn today. So
yes, I'm actually a pastor now.
How does that feel? What did that feel? That ordination was that?
Yeah, I mean, I've been a minister since I got out of college. I've had a really strong call to ministry, but to have that ordination, to go through the process with the overseers and Galen, it's not a small process. And so just confirming again, God's call on my life, God's call for all of us to make disciples, but to have the special privilege to be a pastor, to be able to teach and help in that way, it's super humbling.
Awesome.
I love it.
Well, and that's I think the word, the ordination, the word comes from the Greek word that is seen sometimes is to pick, to specifically choose, to preordain. Right. So you're chosen to represent Cheyenne Hills Church, and that you have that theological knowledge and that ministry background, and that ability to talk to people and represent. So that's so awesome. But that's not your only gig. You're not just pastor, cool, extra pastor. You are here to be the next gen pastor role, which has some very specific kind of focuses. What are some of those that you're starting off?
Yeah, so the one that probably people know the most is Thrive, heading up Thrive and leading there. The other one is Grow Groups, which is what we're going to talk about today, which is so cool. So heading up Grow Groups in strategy, vision, focus, trying to give resources to our amazing volunteers. Obviously, it's not about me. Grow Groups don't happen without our leaders, but I want to make connections, get to know our leaders and resource them and give us as much focus as possible as we want to grow and give more people that space that they can join, be a part of, feel connected, find freedom. That's what we want. And then the last major focus is marriage ministry. So haven't done much yet, but I need to meet with some folks and hear what we've done and how they do premarital counseling and being an extra pastor to help with weddings with Galen.
Awesome. Well, and being a lot more intentional resource for couples too. So that's coming to a church near you. I was really impressed when I first got to Cheyenne Hills about how much participation we have. The churches I grew up in, they had, we were a smaller church, so my folks would meet for Bible study, but I think it was kind of like the one adult Bible study there. Right. So there's a bunch here. What did you say? I think 30 or 40% of Cheyenne Hills are currently in a grow group. That's
what we think right now. Between 30 to 40% of the folks that are coming here are a part of small groups.
So what would you call a kind of a win, like that first goal mile marker?
That's a great question. The long-term win is to double that number, to see anywhere from 60 to 80% of our church a part of a group. And there's so many different types of groups. They all have different affinities, and people are in that group based on demographics or choice or location or age. So I like that word affinity. It's different affinities, tons of groups. But I don't know. I've thought about that 1 year from now, maybe to get it up to 50, 55%. I don't know. It really, it's going to depend on our leaders. It's going to depend on new leadership. That's a big thing for us going forward is we need more leaders. We need new groups so that people can find that space to connect.
Awesome. And I know you said you're looking at, you said already, resources and communication and all that kind of stuff. So that's awesome to hear. So I have a quick thing for me. The importance of grow groups that I was looking at was when I first got here, Like I said, I didn't grow up. We had kind of a youth group, and there was like 8 of us growing up. And so I never had that kind of outside of Sunday church community. But then when I first got here, Evan Grubel, who was actually a graphic designer that I work with, he was the leader of the kind of the young adults group, like the 18 to 25 kind of group. For the first little while, that was cool just to kind of be around people, and that was new. But especially once I got married, my wife and I got invited to this group of people it's married couples. And they're everyone from like, I think pre-30s to a married couple who's been married for like 45 years. And so we're going through a lot of the same material, but to hear the responses to Bible material from people who are in all different stages of their walk with Christ, different stages of their walk with one another as a couple. And that's just one example. Like you said, there's all sorts of, that's an affinity that I did not realize how much more special and more thoroughly I was going to get out of getting to know God better and getting to know my fellow Christians better. The big thing that we came to mind that I think you have queued up to read here actually was Hebrews 10 starting in 24 about like when they're setting up the church, like the importance of being together.
That's right. Yeah. And this is not a suggestion. So here, what Paul says is, and let us, I'm going to go back to 24. Paul says, let us think of ways to motivate one another to acts of love and good works. Let us not neglect our meeting together, as some people do, but encourage one another, especially now the day of his return is drawing near. And so I love that. I would love to hear Pastor Gielen's take on this verse. I know that means Sunday, but I would feel that means we need more than just a Sunday gathering. And so I think what we were thinking is like that verse applies as well to grow groups, because Alex and I have been there where, you can come in on a Sunday and you can slip right out and go on to the next thing with your day and good things, bad things, whatever, get distracted. It's easy to forget about the message, and maybe God had something for you. Some of our grow groups process the sermon. They ask good questions of the sermon. How do we apply the sermon? So I love that. It's taking, maybe inspiration on Sunday. You get into a grow group, and now you have this small space to talk about what does it mean for Karsten? What does it mean for Casey? Our jobs, what we're going through, and how do we apply it?
And that's a big thing that I've noticed. A terminology that my group likes to use is doing life together. We're not just, I don't want to put these two things together, but when you all go to the movie and it's kind of a corporate experience, but you're not really interacting as much. Like, so a lot of people might have that thing, especially if you've got kids and stuff. You're getting in here, you're getting them checked in, you make it in barely, like right at the end of the call to worship song, and just in time for the welcome and whatever. And then maybe when you get out, you got, lunch with grandma later. So you got to go get the kids and bounce out. And you don't get that chance to really like commune with other Christians and hear what's going on in other people's lives and have other people hear what's going on in your life and be able to, be Christians living a Christian life together, which you get in those grow groups, really being around other people.
That is such an amazing point. Sunday is very much designed to bless and serve and give the people that are sitting in the seats what God has for them and what they need. But it's about receiving. It's not necessarily a giving or a relationship. So in a grow group, it's not just what Karsten needs. It is hearing what Casey needs. And I can pray for you, and I can help you, and I can serve you, or I can just listen to your story and be like, man, that's hard. I'm so sorry. And just to have someone to share your story with is awesome.
Even just being able to say, I'm having this struggle right now, and that's it. Like, I'm having this struggle right now. And to know that other people hear me, other people see me, other people who are looking through a Christian lens, and maybe they don't always, because, we learned from Job, but you don't always need to give advice because, but
his 3 friends,
his 3 friends,
you did something wrong, Job. You jacked it up.
You must be really sinning bad if you're having a hard time at your work right now, bud. But anyway, but you can be around people, but you do have those times where someone, like I said, this married couple who's been married together for 43 years would say, I remember when there's something like that happened. Like, there's wisdom, there's other people to be around, and they're going to give you, hopefully speak to you from that Christian worldview, and not just like your coworker who maybe is like, oh, you should just, I don't know, punch him in the face. I don't know what, give you some bad advice.
And then think about this too, is that like Sunday, in our corporate gathering, when we're in the sanctuary, like that's not a family dynamic. Again, it's being able to worship God and receive his truth. And tons of family dynamics happen before and after service. But in grow groups, there's that family element. It's small enough. You get to know each other, what you like, what you don't like, your hurts, your, habits that maybe are good or bad. And it's not all negative stuff. I mean, our grow group, we have a ton of fun. And we do this model we call gather and scatter. So like gather is when we process the sermon, but scatter is like, we'll just go have fun, whether it's like going and doing axe throwing together, or we went and watched the Jesus Revolution the guys did.
I knew you'd done that before.
Oh yeah.
Axe throwing.
We axe throwing.
There had to be. Okay.
Coming off of what Galen said about adoption this last week, and then you and I processed that for our other podcast that we just started called the Companion Podcast. So we talked about adoption, family, that creed that we read at the end that Packer put up there. It said that every Christian is my brother, and that hit you hard. It's like, this is our family. And I said, look, we don't have the resources, the time, the space, the maybe the money or whatever. We can't help everybody, but we can pray for a lot of people. And so when you're in Grow Group, you're in this family dynamic. It's small. You get to know each other. You can pray for each other. It's just different than coming in on Sunday and sitting with hundreds of Christians and worshiping, which is amazing. But Grow Group's different. And it's awesome.
Yes. And all of it's important. I think you were telling me the other day about when you were in sports, like you all got together and you have a team practice. But if you all went home after that and didn't see each other again until the next Saturday, in your case, instead of Sunday, like what would that look like? Yeah.
Thanks for setting this up. So bear with me, guys. Another football analogy, but that's my come from. So you have practice, and you practice and you practice and you practice to play a game. So that's an interesting flip on life. Where do we practice so that when we're put in the game, we're putting in the moments where we need to make the right decisions to honor God and bless people? Where do we practice so that we can play well? But one thing we talked about with grow groups or like the Sunday gathering is think about the meetings. So there's practicing on the field, but we also practice a lot in just meeting room space. And every week when I played for the University of Wyoming, every week we would have a big team meeting with the head coach, and we would get some of the big ideas or correction or encouragement or some big strategy. But there wasn't like that was the only meeting. Like, oh, great, met with the head coach. Like, let's go.
See you later.
Yeah, see you later. No, it was head coach, big level stuff. Then it was meeting with the offense and getting down more into some details. And then it was tons and tons and tons of quarterback meetings where it was specifically our position, what we needed to do to help the team to win. So think about that with church. Like Sunday is so important, this big corporate gathering. And yes, you have time to meet with some people and connect in the lobby or whatever space, but grow groups feels like that offensive meeting or the team room, like QBs. It's like, for instance, some of our grow groups are like men or women only. That seems like a position meeting. It's like, all right, as dudes, we can talk about some really specific things that I'm not going to share if it's a different type of group, if it's bigger, if it's a, mixed gender, so stuff like that. Like we have different groups, different affinities that allow people to get that specific. But no matter what, I feel like it's that offensive meeting where it's smaller and it's very specific.
Well, and then we have things like men's breakfast. We have, and then we have coffee with Jesus. That the women have,
and mops
and men.
We have a grandparents group.
Oh, so really?
Age based, grandparents. We have young adults.
And then we have like organizations like Men and Women's Crucible and stuff like that. Like you said, there are all these different levels, but they're all important because they pour into us in different ways. And it's that iron sharpens iron. I couldn't remember where that was from. I'm pretty sure it's a proverb, but I know it's an Old Testament. Iron sharpens iron.
Let's see if
so
Google
one
knows
man types, sharpens another. Being around each other, and so as many different kind of edges you can be around, the sharper you're going to be. And
Proverbs 27:17. Thanks, Google.
Thanks, Google. I'm getting better at this, remembering where stuff is from, though. But it's not just you go through and we get poured into here. But then I'm going to go hang out with all my brothers, and then I'm going to go hang out with my brothers and sisters in my grow group, and then I might have, like you said, that small one-on-one. I'm sure you probably had like another QB who, like outside of the meeting, you guys hit up lunch and stuff like that. Like all of these different places that we meet are important to building us up and solidifying ourselves, helping us, check that armor of God. Like, let me come by and make sure that that your belt's on tight and that your helmet's on straight and stuff like that. Because when we're by ourselves, what else happens? You know, we not realize like there's a side of our lives that we're really letting, Christ or the Holy Spirit kind of dwindle, like in our work life or something else. And if you're not around other Christians, like there's no one will notice that. There's no one there to help you out, and vice versa. If that's
it's like, it's for you, but you're needed.
Yeah.
It's also for you to serve, for you to be there, to advocate, to maybe chip in your experience, or maybe you have some advice. I love those groups that have a mixed ages or maybe mixed stages of life, because then you can say, I remember that. And, that's, you want to tread lightly where it's like, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but in my experience, this is what happened. And, I hope that you figure it out.
Yeah, it's been fun. I'm right at 40, so I'm like right in that spot where I've got people that, luckily, there's plenty of people older than me who can be like, oh yeah, I remember something like when I was your age, I remember going through something like that. But then there's someone else I can turn around and they're saying I'm going through something. I'm like, oh, I remember when I was 27, I was going through that too. And so we all can have a chance to be. Tom Harmson, who is actually one of my Grow Group leaders, had this thing. He says, you should always have a Paul and always have a Timothy in your life.
All right.
Like you'd always have someone who's like pouring into you and who you're learning from, and always someone who maybe you're helping and pull up in their walk too. And so that's the kind of thing you can find in these.
I've got one for you. Right. Rick Warren, who wrote The Purpose-Driven Life. He said this, you should have dead role models and living mentors. He goes, because you want to know how they finished.
Oh.
And I was like, dang, dead role models and living mentors. You need someone pouring in, but you also want to have people that finished well, that didn't blow up their family or have some sort of a scandal. I don't know. I was like, dang.
That those fly in the ointment that might ruin the fact that you've been using that ointment for so long. And you're like, oh, that's bad now. Well, and so one of the things that we're talking about is for grow groups, and a lot of grow groups do a lot of different things, but I know there's a handful of grow groups at least who tend to follow the current sermon series, whatever it is. Sometimes they'll just jump in for that series because it happens to speak to where they're at or where their group is, and some people just make a habit of they just kind of follow what's going on Sundays. And to that end, we actually got the idea. Well, you got the crazy idea. I'll give it credit where credit's due of having something that the grow group leaders especially, but honestly anyone who wants to come and take another deeper bite out of that week's message that we're doing, and that's that companion podcast. You want to talk about the kind of your thought behind that, what your goal is, and who you really want to be able to make a resource out of that?
Yeah. The inspiration, there's nothing new under the sun. We went to a very large church in California. It wasn't Rick Warren's, but a different one. And the pastor had a show called The Debrief. And so it was debriefing the message, and he would answer questions, but sometimes he would expand on the topic, or he'd have guests that would come in. And so I just loved it, and then if you've had a chance to teach or be a presenter, you know how much time it takes to get ready to present, to teach. And same thing for preaching. There's so much study. I would take a guess that on average there's probably like 20 hours of prep that goes into a message. And the thing that hit me was like, we don't want all of that prep and what God does on Sunday and for it to just evaporate by Tuesday, Monday night. Tuesday morning, you're like, what was the sermon about? So
in the video, we called it stuff that ends up on the cutting room floor. Like, I only have 35 minutes to talk. I was even talking to Keith Couts, who's doing this week's message. He said, I've got something. I'm not sure it's going to make it in. I said, well, funny thing, what are you doing at 12:30 on Sunday? So if you want to hear that extra story.
So that was a thought. So companion, it can be a space where something that didn't make it on Sunday, we have a space to share that story or share that insight. But I think a lot of them are going to be you and I saying, man, what about this message hit us, us processing. But the last couple that we've done has been coming up with questions for Grow Group. So the whole thing is like, we don't want the sermon to evaporate by Tuesday, but to take the message. Our companion podcast is about 15 minutes, and we just want to ask great questions of the message. And my heart, as a pastor is application.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to just talk about it. I don't want just head knowledge. It's like, how does this make me think and behave and have habits like Jesus?
Yep.
And so that's my heart for the Companion podcast, is that we just help extend the sermon, and that if it gets into more application, I say that's a huge win.
Awesome. And then that gives you listeners or you viewers like an extra opportunity to take something maybe you hadn't thought of yet, or take something like you said, instead of, you walk out of there hopefully just filled to the brim on Sunday, but we know by Wednesday your tank might already be getting halfway empty or so. Like, come back, check this out, and you'll be able to find questions that maybe get you to dive deeper. We've been tackling and going a little bit further into some of the scripture that they're using and stuff like that. So, but we hope that Grow Group leaders, because that comes out on Tuesday mornings.
Yep.
And so that should give most Grow Group leaders plenty of time to check it out, or even encourage your Grow Group themselves to look at it and then think about those things and say, we're going to talk about this question, so you probably ought to check this out. And again, we make it 15 minutes so they have plenty of time to, it doesn't take up a big chunk of your day. It's a drive to work.
No, and it's obviously, all this it's optional resource.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying you have to ask the questions that we come up with, but it's just you and I always have fun. So it's like, we have fun, but we're trying to get in and be like, man, what does this look like in our lives, or maybe for other people? We're just thinking through that space. And like I said, for me, it's application.
Absolutely. Well, I think that's going to wrap us up. We're right at 20 some minutes, and that's where we want to shoot for this podcast. Thank you, Pastor Karsten, for being here today. It's been awesome. We know they're actually getting ready for the big graduation party tonight for Thrive.
That's right. Graduation celebration tonight. Awesome. We're going to cook up like 80 hot dogs and hamburgers. And it's going to be amazing.
Is that that's for all of Thrive, right? Or is that just for
all of Thrive, seniors, and then the seniors' parents.
Seniors' parents. All right. Well, if I get this out early enough like I want to, that'll be here at the barn at 6:30. I know things about the church. 6:30. All right. Thanks so much, everybody. Thank you for joining me, and thanks for Karsten, and see you next time.
Yeah. Awesome. Bye, guys.